The Tolkien Road, episode 176, Lord of the Rings TV Second Age Deep Dive, the themes of the Second Age. Hello everyone, welcome to the Tolkien Road. John here, with you for episode 176. Greta, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am rocking and rolling.
Right on.
Ready to get started on one of my favorite Tolkien things.
What?
Talking about the
Tolkien?
Waldman Letter.
Oh, is that what we're talking about today?
Yeah, the Waldman Letter.
The Waldman Letter.
Yeah. Did you bring your copy of the letters?
I did. I didn't realize that was... Because we didn't read the whole thing.
I mean, you're a Tolkien fan, so you've always got your copy of his letters right there with you, right?
I always have it right in my back pocket.
Yeah.
Everywhere I go.
What else are you going to use that ginormous back pocket for?
I know. So. Like I'm at the grocery store and I'm trying to check out and I pull out my book. I'm like, thinking it's my wallet. I'm like, oh.
And then the cashier's like, I've got one too.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, that's happened to me a few times.
And then we get sidetracked talking about Tolkien and then my ice cream melts and,
Wah wah.
Anyway.
It's a tragedy almost as...
But it's always worth it. It's
heartbreaking
always
as the
worth it.
Tragedy of Numenor in the Second Age. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah, I do.
Know what I'm talking about?
Actually, I do because
right.
I read the Waldman Letter, or at least part of it.
Good.
We didn't read the whole thing, did we?
No, we didn't.
Okay.
But we'll get back to that. So, first things first. Hey, thanks for listening. This is episode 176, and we're continuing on our Lord of the Rings TV Second Age Deep Dive. Diving deep. Don't forget to pledge $1 or more per episode over at patreon.com/TolkienRoad. You can set a monthly limit and do no more than $1 per month. So we prefer you do more, but we'll take any little bit you can give, and we are appreciative of it. And you get bonuses for the smallest amount you can give.
All right. Even $1. You get all the bonus stuff. You
get the bonus stuff. That is as it stands right now. Now, I am kind of been thinking about how I want to get back onto the whole Patreon swing and maybe doing some cooler stuff for those who give on a higher level. But right now, bottom line, there's a bunch of cool bonus stuff over there. So, try not to overpromise here, Greta. I'm just saying,
Sorry. I just got really excited there for a minute.
The new Ferrari is only for the people who give at the $1 billion plus level.
That's like the platinum plus level.
That's the mithril level.
Mithril.
Yeah.
Yes. Or Arkenstone.
Not just keeping it real, keeping it mithril.
Oh man.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right. So, but you do get new episodes early, and you get over 40 bonus videos not available elsewhere. And then you get my latest freebie, which is a free copy of my article, All Tales May Come True, concerning Tolkien's creative mysticism. And there's a whole bunch more coming soon. I'm going to try and have a new freebie for our patrons, one per month from here on out. So, yeah, yes. Patreons for our Patreon patrons.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, you got it.
All right, and then don't forget to rate us on iTunes if you haven't already. Those 5-star ratings they're the lifeblood of getting... of growing the audience for the Tolkien Road. So if you are a fan, that's one of the coolest things you can do for us is leave us that 5-star review on iTunes or whatever app you listen to us on. So I had somebody write in and ask about doing it on Google Play this week, which I was kind of like, I'm not really sure because I don't listen to it there, but I sent them instructions and looks like you can Google that kind of stuff to figure it out. So
oh, cool.
Most of these apps out there do have a way of leaving ratings for the podcast you listen to. So we'd appreciate your 5-star ratings wherever you listen.
Indeed.
We love feedback on SpeakPipe. So if you go to TolkienRoad.com, you can leave us a voicemail on SpeakPipe and be heard on the very next episode because we're giving those pieces of correspondence front of the line privileges right now. So if you hear us say something in the episode today that you think's wrong, or you just want to say, hey, I thought that was really cool, or here's some other notes on that I thought your listeners might enjoy, hey, go over to SpeakPipe and speak your mind.
It's way easier to speak than type sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Like more efficient, too.
Yeah, and it's even easier to speak pipe than just to speak or type.
That's what I'm saying.
So I threw a little rhyme in there.
Yeah, oh, wow. You are on a roll.
I am.
You're on a roll.
As usual.
Uh-huh.
All right. Upcoming episodes, we're going to continue our Second Age deep dive and reading about Akalabaith again and the Rings of Power and the Third Age.
Wait, that's after this one?
After this one.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is a continuation of the Second Age deep dive.
Gotcha.
So I'm thinking, we'll get through those two things. We may do one other thing after that, and then we'll head into, I don't know, that's, it's hard to think of more than a couple episodes out for us right now, but lots to talk about in the Second Age and getting us all well educated there. So
yeah,
that's the plan right now.
Cool.
Our October mailbag will be recorded around 10:23, so if you have something you want to send us for that episode, send it on in, and we'll get it on. We'll get it on there if it's into us at TolkienRoadPodcast@gmail.com before 10:23. Sound good?
Awesome, actually.
All right. Excellent.
Yep.
So,
is that all the announcements?
Well, one little piece of news, Latron Prime. So, little thing that came out on the news waves today. I guess a press release.
This could be a shocker. I don't think I'm ready for this.
I mean, it's probably kind of expected. So basically, they just announced that they're going to be filming the show primarily in New Zealand. So I'll link to an article from the New Zealand Herald. Auckland, yeah, that's a big city in New Zealand.
Okay.
So I will link to an article there that talks about that and talks about some of the, some interesting details you may not have realized about, about the production. It's... Yeah, I was reading in here, some of the numbers are just astronomical. They're saying it's got a $1.5 billion budget over 5 seasons.
Wow.
And some people are saying it's even higher. It's closer to $3 billion, and I'm just dang.
Dang. Did I see something up there that it's the most expensive TV show, or it's set to be the most expensive?
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah.
I mean...
set to be the most expensive TV show ever.
Yeah. It has to be.
It just surprises me because there's been shows that have run for multiple seasons.
Yeah.
So... I mean, think of how many seasons did Breaking Bad go? That went
Well, yeah, but they didn't spend... I mean, think about that. There weren't any really, super famous people on that show when it started.
That's true. There weren't, crazy costumes.
Yeah, it wasn't some book that they adapted. It was just an original story.
That's true.
Right?
Okay, do you think a lot of that is just the rights? A lot of
a huge part of it's the rights,
okay.
without a doubt. But I don't think it's all of it. I think they're also just trying to do things on a very epic scale as well.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see what the last season of Game of Thrones cost.
That's probably a good comparison.
As a comparison point.
Yeah.
But I wonder about the Amazon Prime thing. And if anybody has any insight to this, I'd really like to hear. You get these, you're starting to get more and more shows like this on the Netflixes and the Amazon Primes, Disney Plus. Where does it, which is not even out yet, but they've already got a bunch of huge shows. And that's becoming the new thing is streaming TV, right?
Right.
And each company has its own streaming TV channel. And so I guess the revenue in these is that more people will be subscribers to Amazon Prime because of Lord of the Rings on Prime. And maybe the bank on that is that they're willing to spend so much money on it because they'll bring so many more people to Amazon Prime or just retain them.
They'll make up the...
And we've been Amazon Prime members for a long time,
several
right?
years, yeah.
And it's really nice because you save on the shipping and, for most things. And so it just becomes a retention thing, right? People will stay there. It'll sign new people up who maybe were skeptical before. And then once they're in, they'll stay on because they're like, oh, it's kind of a good deal. So
yeah,
maybe that's a big part of the play. I have to guess it is because you're not paying for the show by itself. You're not. I assume you won't. Maybe they'll have some kind of special tier for it, but it's just an astronomical figure to think about how they're going to make.
That's mind blowing.
How they're going to actually make a profit on all of this, but
think of what it's going to do for Auckland's economy as well.
That's what the article is in large part about. Is talking about the economy and of Auckland and what it's going to do for them, and so it's the most detailed article I could find on this little piece of news that came out. So it'd be an interesting thing to watch from a New Zealand perspective over the next couple of years.
So was the announcement just a picture of the New Zealand flag? Is that all there was?
Oh, on Twitter, that's all.
On Twitter, that's all there was.
That's all that Lord.
So we don't actually
that's
know
all that our
for
good buddy
sure
Latron posted was just the New Zealand flag.
It could mean something else.
He likes to be coy.
He does. I kind of like that about him.
Yeah.
But so we don't know for sure that's what it means. Do we?
Well, no, they put out a press release saying that.
Oh. I was
but
having
it was funny.
I was going to have fun speculating.
It was funny because some people saw that and said, "Wait, they're filming it in the United Kingdom?" Right?
I was probably one of those people.
And then you did your best. And then you did your best
British accent.
British accent.
Yes.
Ended up sounding like German.
What? It's happening in the Confederacy? what?
All right.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm. I could just listen to you do British accents all day.
I wasn't even trying.
I could tell.
I couldn't decide if I should do a Southern accent or a British accent, so I just kind of went into no man's land with that one.
Yeah.
All right. Anyways, well, it's exciting.
Yeah.
Cool.
So that's the latest from LOTR
right.
Prime.
Thanks, LOTR.
Okay, so we are talking today about letter 131 from Milton Waldman, or to Milton Waldman, Tolkien's letter 131 to Milton Waldman. You can find it in this book right here, The Letters of J.R.R. Tolkien, which you have in your back.
I was gonna do a Vanna White thing, but
oh yes, sorry,
too fast. It's okay.
Which you all already own anyway. But if you don't, we'll have a link to it in the show notes. You can pick up a copy. I highly recommend it. It's one of my favorite books. Lots of good stuff in there. Like stuff we'll never even get to on the podcast, but tons of good stuff. But we've actually done, I don't know if all of this letter, but we've done a majority of it before.
We have.
And you know which episode it was?
100?
Episode 1.
Oh.
Episode 1.
I was only off by 99.
Our very first episode back in 2015.
Was on the Waldman Letter?
Well, it was kind of an introduction to the Silmarillion, and we used the Waldman Letter as the basis for that discussion.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that that's what I was reading today. Because we must be reading, you must have had me read, the middle section. Right?
Yeah, so we didn't read the whole thing because we're just focused on the second age
right.
and didn't want to get too bogged down in the stuff from the first age for today. But if you do want to go listen to our discussion about the rest of the Waldman Letter as found in the Silmarillion, and actually the Silmarillion doesn't contain the entire Waldman Letter, it just contains the Waldman Letter through, I believe, the second age. But if you want to listen to our first age part of it, you can go back and listen to that. It's the very first episode we ever did, so, it might sound kind of funny listening to us back then, but have at it.
We were just babies.
Yeah, podcasting infants back then.
Yeah.
So, and look at us, we're such pros right now.
We got it going on.
Yeah, all right.
Yes, okay.
So it starts off by saying that the second age was a dark age. That it was a very dark age, which seems surprising given that they've just defeated Morgoth, right? So it's like, ding dong, the witch is dead, right?
Mm-hmm.
It seems like it should be happy and people dancing and all that good stuff, but it's not. Tolkien starts out and he says explicitly that it is a dark age. The second age is a dark age in Middle-earth. Now, the main focus is on the establishment of Numenor, and Tolkien lays out, really the establishment and downfall of Numenor, and Tolkien lays out 3 major themes, and that's what I really want to focus our discussion on, is these 3 major themes.
Mm-hmm.
The first theme he mentions is the delaying elves that lingered in Middle-earth, all right? And then the second theme is Sauron's growth to a new Dark Lord, Master and God of Men. And then the third is Numenor and he says Numenor - Atlantis, which is not the name of Numenor. It's just, he's kind of trying to frame this for Waldman, who's like, you lost me at orcs, right? So, and a little background, Waldman, real quick, if you don't recall, Waldman was, basically, before Lord of the Rings was published, Tolkien wanted to have Lord of the Rings and the Silmarillion published together, right? Like the entire book. So you think about 1,000 pages roughly for Lord of the Rings, and then 500 more pages for the Silmarillion, right? And maybe it was longer then. I don't know. I mean, we're talking that they were like.
I think it would be a tome or tome. What is it? Tome.
Who do you think you are? Like, do you think you're Jesus? Like you're writing a new Bible here, right?
Yeah.
You're writing a new Bible here.
Yeah. That'd be quite intimidating for the masses as well.
Yeah, so Tolkien was pretty insistent on this, though. So he went, Alan and Unwin, who had published The Hobbit, didn't want to do that. So he went to Milton Waldman of the Collins Publishing Company, and he said, hey, do you want to publish this? And he wrote him this letter to kind of give him some background on the whole story.
So Waldman's a publisher.
Waldman is a publisher.
Okay.
And then Waldman didn't want to do it, and so eventually it sounds like Tolkien kind of went crawling back on his hands and knees to Alan and Unwin and was like, we can do it your way if you want to, and just do Lord of the Rings.
So Waldman never published any of Tolkien's stuff?
So it was published, and this is, somebody help me out here, because I was trying to research this beforehand. I assume that Collins eventually became, merged with Harper to become HarperCollins later on, but I couldn't find the specific link to that.
Oh, and Waldman
in
is from
my short amount of
Collins.
research before this episode.
I
HarperCollins
see.
is like
Yeah, I know. Right,
and then
I know
and then
that
HarperCollins
is, yeah.
bought Allen and Unwin in the early '90s, and so they own the rights to Lord of the Rings,
Okay.
at least stateside now. I'm not
I
sure
see.
about the UK, but
Okay.
anyway, other people know more about all the publishing background of this than I do, and we'd love to hear from you. Speak pipe us. So this letter, just given background, and those are the three themes: the delaying elves that lingered in Middle-earth, Sauron's growth to a new Dark Lord, and then Numenor, right? So that's where he begins. That's his quote, and I think that's important because I really, even though they may not have be using this letter as source material that they can explicitly write from, this is really good information for those who are writing the show, because with so little detail about the Second Age available, I would want to know what the themes are so that I can respect them.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And he does go on to give more details, but I feel like it's a good framework.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it gives them a really good jumping off point.
Yeah.
To really do some cool stuff.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. You need to scooch over in here so you're actually in the full video.
Okay.
So, yeah, because it's only half your head.
Well.
You were doing the whole
It wasn't my idea to do video in the first place.
I know. Hey, shout out to the people who are watching us on video. If you like this,
Hi.
subscribe to our YouTube channel down below.
We have a YouTube channel?
Well, yeah, we do, and we need people to subscribe to it.
Wow.
This is
Okay.
brand new thing is doing the video for us, but
Yikes.
yeah.
Okay.
All right, so you got me sidetracked. Oh yeah, here we go. So theme 1. Let's go back to theme 1. The delaying elves that lingered in Middle Earth. All right, so the home of the elves. Where are the elves supposed to live?
Were they supposed to live?
Right.
Well,
just go back to the Silmarillion. Where are the elves
they're
supposed
to live in Valinor.
Of course, yes. Yeah.
Because they're immortal.
They are immortal.
Like the Valar.
So Tolkien calls this out, and he says that one of the problems is that you have the elves that were in Middle Earth and survived the War of Wrath, right? Survived into the Second Age. That some of them go back, but some of them don't, right?
Some of them go back to Valinor.
Some of them do make the journey back to Valinor, and the road is always open to them, but some of them don't. And it's really interesting what he says.
Those are the delaying ones.
Those are the delaying elves.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. He says the reason they delayed is because they wanted the peace and bliss and perfect harmony of the West, and yet to remain on the ordinary earth, where their prestige as the highest people above wild elves, dwarves, and men was greater than at the bottom of the hierarchy of Valinor. They thus became obsessed with fading, the mode in which the changes of time, the law of the world under the sun, was perceived by them. They became sad in their art, shall we say antiquarian, and their efforts all really a kind of embalming. So
Tolkien says that basically they want to have their cake without eating it.
Yeah, which
And
is
I
a different
always
version
thought-
of what I
it's
hear.
Totally a different version than what I was.
Maybe it's
than
the
what I'm
British
used
version
to.
of that saying that we say in the
could
U.S.
be. So we should say it with a British accent, right? I'm not gonna try.
You want to go there? All right.
No. But yeah, okay. So that's what he was trying to say, though.
Yeah.
It's like our version of have their cake and eat it too. They wanted the best of both worlds.
They wanted the best of.
Yeah.
They wanted the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because he elaborates some on this and basically lays it out as like they wanted bliss, they wanted harmony, and all those kinds of things that made them happy, but if they go back to Valinor, then they have to be kind of the low man on the totem pole, right? Or the low elf on the totem pole. If they stay here, they can try to have that, and they can be the top dog, right? The top elf.
Yeah. So that is, they want the best of both worlds.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a pride thing there too, isn't there?
Oh, surely. Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
They want to be big fish in a little pond.
Anytime someone doesn't want to humble themselves, there's going to be a pride thing.
Right.
So
clearly.
So the reason this is important is because it opens the door to Sauron, and Sauron perceives this, right? Sauron looks at their plight and realizing they don't want to go back to Valinor for whatever reason, and he's like, maybe I can help them out, right? So, had to get the other scare quote on video there. So yeah, he says, maybe I can help them out. And that's where the Rings of Power come into play, right? That's where he instructs them in the construction of the Rings of Power, and all the while is creating his own one ring to rule the Rings of Power, right? So it's interesting what...
And just to be clear, the way that he would be helping them with the rings is that they could use the rings to make Middle-earth the paradise that Valinor is. Is that how they would work?
Yeah, that's kind of that's the idea. So...
because Sauron found their weak point in suggesting that helping one another, they could make Western Middle-earth as beautiful as Valinor.
Right. And he even says I believe he says there's a kind of hubris in this. So why don't you read, can you start where it says there arose a friendship a little bit before, just a little bit before that? And then I'll tell you when to stop.
There arose a friendship between the usually hostile folk of elves and dwarves for the first and only time, and smithcraft reached its highest development. But many of the elves listened to Sauron. He was still fair in that early time, and his motives and those of the elves seemed to go partly together. The healing of the desolate lands. Sauron found their weak point in suggesting that helping one another, they could make Western Middle-earth as beautiful as Valinor. It was really a veiled attack on the gods as incitement to try and make a separate, independent paradise. Gil-galad repulsed all such overtures, as did Elrond, but Eregion.
Nope. Eregion.
I was trying to figure softer.
Okay.
Harji. But at Eregion, great work.
Eregion.
Okay.
Remember, Greta, not Dreta.
Dreta. Okay. But at you just say it.
Eregion.
Eregion. Great work began, and the elves came their nearest to falling to magic and machinery. With the aid of Sauron's lore, they made rings of power. Power is an ominous and sinister word in all these tales, except as applied to the gods.
Yeah, so that's kind of the relevant section there.
And also proof that Tolkien really did hate magic.
Yes, I know.
He hated magic.
Yeah, see my rant on our review of the Tolkien film. Right?
Yes.
I
tried to defend you.
You deserve magic.
Which I thought was super romantic and sweet, and then you just destroyed it, and I was like, oh.
Well, it was in any other context, but
you made a good case for it. He should have said enchantment, but it just doesn't sound as smooth.
It doesn't, but it's bad writing. It was bad writing. That's what it was. It was fine as an idea, but it was bad execution. So anyway,
I know. We don't need to dig up that. I know. We don't need to dig up that grievance.
So yeah, you kind of see how this works. How Sauron is the master tempter, right? Mm-hmm. He sees why they're delaying. He sees why they're, not maybe being doing what they're really supposed to be doing, and then he's like, "Ooh, there's an underlying thing that I can pretend to be their friend on," right? Mm-hmm. And then because the whole goal, right, of Morgoth and then of Sauron now is to ruin the relationship between the elves and then the Valar, right? Mm-hmm. To create a breach of trust there. Mm-hmm. So he convinces them that with his help, he can teach them how to use these powers of these rings to make it a more beautiful place, right? And so the chief power of these rings, of the Elvish rings in particular, is the slowing of decay, right? And we know this is important to the elves because they are immortal and they don't like to see the things that they've made decay, right? They don't like to see them die, waste away, go away. Mm-hmm. So that's Sauron's end. Sauron's end is the elves' unwillingness to go back to Numenor because they want to stay here, go to Valinor because they want to stay here, make this land beautiful, and be top dogs. Right.
Yeah. And it also says that the other thing that the ring does is it makes things and makes the possessor enhances the natural powers.
Yes, it does.
The possessor.
Great point.
Which he says is approaches magic even further, which is, he says, a motive easily corruptible into evil, a lust for domination. So is that really what's at the heart of the elves' desire here? Like, do they want to dominate? Because I felt like maybe they just wanted to live in a happy place.
I don't think it's so much that they want to
important.
dominate, not the way that Sauron does. I think
Okay.
I think it's more like they just want to. They don't want to be the low man on the totem pole, right? And so it's, pride does not necessarily mean that somebody wants to be the greatest all the time, right?
Yeah.
For some, it might mean something like that, right? But I think that's pretty rare, actually. I think even with most human beings, like pride can almost look stupid sometimes, like like to the outside observer.
Yes,
I'm trying to think
true.
of like some like comical. I feel like I've seen this in like a Coen Brothers movie or something like that, where like a person does something like make like like a really weird character like has to be like number one at bingo or something like that, and so they like they cheat, and you're watching it and you're just like, it's so goofy, but like in that person's mind it's not.
What about Dwight from The Office?
Dwight, I think, would want to like legitimately dominate.
Well, he
Like,
would, but he's like, I feel like
under Michael Scott.
Yeah. But I feel like he does a lot of stupid things that don't seem stupid to him because he wants to be top dog under Michael Scott, and because he's prideful.
Yeah, and so it does manifest itself in different ways. But I'm more like pointing out the funny case of where like you're like you just experience a person being really weird about. I'll tell you where this shows up is in coaching youth sports. Let's be honest.
I wasn't going to mention that.
I have coached baseball for several years, and there's been more than once where my pride has gotten the best of me in that venue. And you look back on it, and you reflect on it, and you're like, what an idiot! I'm just such an idiot. Like,
I started going to games in disguise.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. I actually didn't.
If you have any involvement with youth sports, you've surely seen this. It can overwhelm.
No,
the
you
best
are not
people.
alone. You are not alone in that.
So that may be a good little snippet of what we're talking about here. It doesn't necessarily mean that like a person has to be the absolute best, but it can, pride can manifest itself in some funny ways. So anyway, so it does. This doesn't mean that the elves want to be dominant over everybody. It just means that they don't want to be. I mean, and understandably so. Like, we're elves. We're kind of cool. Like, we're cooler than all you guys,
which
right?
is true.
Right?
They
Which,
are.
let's be honest, is pretty much true. But
I mean, if Latron Prime came to me and said, we want to cast you in this show as like as a human, I'd be like, elf or nothing.
Only do an elf
or nothing.
Nope, only elf.
I want the pointy ears. I want the beautiful hair. I want immortality. I want all the things.
Mm-hmm.
So I get it.
Yep.
I mean, the elves do deserve a certain amount of respect.
You'd be like, I deserve magic.
You're right.
Yeah, let's be honest.
And then they'd be like, never mind. We don't want you.
Right.
Because you clearly don't understand Tolkien.
Well, they might say, then you'll get magic. Or something like that. If it was the person writing the Tolkien movie.
That's true. If it's the person writing the Tolkien movie.
All right. So,
anyways.
But right here again, so the powers of the rings, they enhance the natural powers. They slow decay. He calls out that they do allow for invisibility as well, which explains where that came from, and then making things of the invisible world visible, which is also a cool note. That's why you can see the ring wraiths when you have the ring on. So that's what the rings do. And then it speaks specifically about the elves, the elvish rings, and it actually says that they did not have the ability to confer invisibility, but that they did have a special power for the preservation of beauty. And it's when they create these, Sauron. Now the elves were they were smart enough to know, like, okay, there's we need to be kind of careful with these things, and so they were very. It says. Let's see. It says, he reckoned, however, without the wisdom and subtle perception of the elves, right?
Talking about Sauron.
Sauron.
Yeah.
The moment he assumed the one, they were aware of it and of his secret purpose and were afraid. They hid the three rings so that not even Sauron ever discovered where they were, and they remained unsullied. The others they tried to destroy. So, and so that's how the one ring comes to be along with the other rings. And that tells us more about the temptation of the elves. And this is really Sauron's end. And so, of course, we all know the story of he gives 9 rings to the kings of men, right? And these are not Numenorians. These are like they have different names, but they're like the wild men. They're basically the non-elf friends, right? So these are the men that never really knew of the Valar, right? And it says a little bit later, Sauron dominates all the multiplying hordes of men that have had no contact with the elves, and so indirectly with the true and unfallen Valar and gods. So this is getting into our second theme, which is Sauron's growth to a new Dark Lord.
So wait, real quick. The elves, it said they hid the 3 rings, and Sauron couldn't find them.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that they weren't, like, people owned them, right? Like Galadriel
owned one. Elrond owned one. And no, I'm sorry. Wait, it was Galadriel. I think it was originally Elrond, Galadriel, and Círdan, the shipwright.
Oh, yeah.
Though that may not have been the original 3. It doesn't say here. We'll find that out when we read
so
some
they
other
didn't
things.
stay in hiding. Like the rings did not. The elven rings did not stay hid. They were distributed.
But I don't know what they mean by hid, because I kind of wondered about that too. We see Galadriel, well, in the movie at least, we see her wearing it. I think it mentions her wearing it in the book. So maybe there was like a special thing they did where they could still wear them, but hide them, right, from him somehow.
I see. But they still were controlled by the One Ring.
No, they weren't.
They weren't. See, that's why I was confused.
I think, I know it is confusing, but I think that's the thing, is I think they did something to ensure that they couldn't be controlled in the same way the other rings were.
I see. Okay. The moment he assumed the one, they were aware of it and of his secret purpose and were afraid. So they hid the ring so that he couldn't control, so that he couldn't put his power into them.
It's all depends on what that word hid means.
I see. Okay. All right.
So does it mean hidden in a physical way, which partly, but does it mean something more than that, like hiding it,
or like maybe protected
from
somehow,
the deeper spiritual powers of the rings?
Right. Like maybe put something around them that protected them from being penetrated by Sauron's evil.
Yeah, kind of like how I think both Rivendell and Lothlorien both had like these sorts of enchantments on them where, you couldn't really find them unless you were allowed to. Right.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Something like magic.
Something like magic, I guess.
No.
Tolkien's rolling over in his grave.
Yes, I know.
Because of you. Good job.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So we read in the timeline about the first war between the elves of Middle-earth and Sauron here. And ultimately, Eregion is captured and destroyed by Sauron. And Sauron seizes many of the rings of power. And, of course, this is the first... It doesn't mention this here, but Numenor actually intervenes here to prevent Sauron from taking over the whole region, kind of pushes him back. They don't capture him here, but there's kind of a period of relative stability and peace after this first war with Sauron, where the people in the West kind of flourish, the free peoples in the West kind of flourish, and then in the west of Middle-earth, and then Sauron rules over the men of the East. And... he really establishes himself as a god, right? He's like, he's kind of their dark lord, and they have, as it says, they have no knowledge of the unfallen Valar and the gods. And, as we talked about last couple episodes ago, I think this is important to when we see little things like this, and we'll see more of it in this letter in just a minute. Religion, the religion of Numenor, and the religious aspect of, who proper worship belongs to, is very important in this show. And it's not, for men, it's not actually the Valar. It's the one, right? It's Iluvatar. Men and I believe elves, because they're both children of Iluvatar, rightly worship Iluvatar, right?
Yeah.
So Sauron wants to do what he can, not only to prevent the elves from doing that rightly, but also to prevent men from doing that as well. So.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Let's see. So moving on, we have... I liked this line. Reward on earth is more dangerous for men than punishment. Mm-hmm. I just thought that line was boss.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And how true that is, honestly.
Really, it really is.
Yeah, as a parent, you look, with kids, you're like, not that I like giving my kids rewards, but it's like sometimes punishment, is more effective. Whatever, as we were talking about earlier today with getting school done with one of the kiddos.
Mm-hmm.
So
sometimes it's not candy corn.
Yeah.
sometimes it's not the candy corn to motivate. It's losing privileges that is a greater motivator.
Loss of screen time, the great punishment of our time, of contemporary times. No screen time for you if you don't get your schoolwork done on time. Oh, fine.
Yeah, and if you give me a hard time about it, then you don't get any at all, even when you are done with school.
It works.
It does. It's really kind of sad and scary, but it works.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, Tolkien, and I don't think he was talking about kids here. He's talking about men in general.
Just the human race.
Yeah.
I mean, even the Bible says that God chastises those whom he loves.
Right.
It doesn't say he rewards those whom he loves, right? I mean...
Yeah.
It is, yeah, because the reward is more dangerous than punishment for most men.
And there's a line that Stephen Colbert, who's a big Tolkien fan, has quoted many times when people have asked him about kind of his obsession, not only with Tolkien but with Catholicism as well. And I believe it's lifted straight from Tolkien or paraphrases Tolkien, and he says, "What punishments of God are not also gifts, right? Or are not gifts, something to that effect." So. Something to think about.
Yeah.
Your Tolkien fortune cookie for the day.
It's good.
All right.
That's real good.
And so the third theme is the central theme of Numenor in this whole story, and he says the real issue here is the ban or prohibition. So this is the ban on traveling to Valinor, and that's the central problem that the people of Numenor face. So we're not going to go too much into the history of Numenor because we've done that on some of the episodes already. We'll revisit that some when we talk about Akalabaith. But I'll just call out some of the things here. So so the big thing for the men of Numenor is this desire for long life and possession, right? They live longer than other men, and so they start to feel more elf-like, right? And they have more time to create beautiful things and get better at the things. You know, think about if you and I had 72-hour days.
Wow, we would get so much done.
As opposed to your 24-hour day where you didn't feel any more tired, but you had 72 hours. Think about how good you could get at things, how much more you could enjoy them, right? Like it's mind blowing.
More of that.
And then think about if your life. If right now, I just turned 40 a couple of days ago. All right, people. Now, 40 means that average lifespan of an American man is somewhere like low to mid 70s, something like that. So hopefully I'll live, I'm hoping I'll get into my 80s, maybe even my 90s and be in good health. But we'll just say, kind of optimistically, maybe, hopefully I'll live to 80. So maybe I'm like halfway there, right? Maybe I'm like halfway there. What if, instead of being halfway there right now, I was only a sixth of the way there, right? Which a sixth of the way in terms of 80 years is, what is it? That would be like 13. So what if I was effectively 13 years old right now, 13, 14 years old right now, but actually
with the life experience,
but the prime of life experience, all those kinds of things, right? I mean, it when you really stop to think about 3 times the length of life, you're like, man, I could be like so good at so many things. I would have 3 times the amount of time to enjoy doing the things I'm good at, to enjoy time with my family, my friends, instead of constantly feeling like I've got just all this time and pressure, like my time is at a premium, right? Yeah. But then you think like, well, even if I was that, after a while, I might, want even more.
Yeah,
right?
of course.
I'm like, wait a minute. If I can live that long, then why couldn't I live towards infinity, right? Immortal. Why can't I be immortal, right? And that's what the Numenorians eventually...
Because they got a little taste.
They get a taste.
And then they just want more and more.
And then they want...
and
because they
how
know
a lot of things go with
they know that the elves have it.
Yeah. And they know it's not impossible to give.
Right.
Yeah.
So they have this desire for long life and possession, and then he lays out 3 phases in their fall from grace. The first of those is called acquiescence, willing obedience without full understanding. So they're kind of accepting of their fate and the fact that they can't go to Valinor. And I hope the show does a good job of exploring why that is, why they're prevented from going to Valinor. But they don't fully understand, but they're like, okay, but we've been given a great gift here, and we're going to enjoy that.
Mm-hmm.
And then then the second phase is unwilling obedience, right? It's like begrudging obedience. It's like, I guess we got to obey these jerks, you know? I guess there's nothing we can do about it. And then the third phase is they become powerful enough, and they're like, well, I'm just going to rebel against them, you know? It's a pretty, like, that's a story you've probably heard before in terms of those phases. I was going to
say, that's not an uncommon tale there.
Oh, yeah. That's pretty, I think that's
pretty par for the course.
Pretty normal.
Although what these, but I feel like other times where I've seen this pattern, like those involved in it, those that acquiesce and then unwillingly obey and then rebel,
right?
Like they were kind of in a bad spot to start with.
Mm-hmm.
These people are not in a bad spot. Like they're, as far as like, you know, I mean, basically they have, they're #blessed. #blessed people. I mean, like, they're living on a beautiful island that was created just for them. And they can see Valinor, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're like, they got it made. But, you know, I guess that's the thing. You got a taste. And even people that have got it made, they get a taste of something more. That's what they're going to want.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, I'll get off my soapbox.
No, you're right. So, anyway, like,
anyway,
you know, that's the moral level, but it's still in accord with human nature. What Tolkien is explaining here,
right.
it's very much in accord, and it's maybe even like when you do live a nicer life, then you feel even more deserving of more, right?
Yes.
You know, there may be a temptation there.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So it says that when they begin coming, because they're master mariners, so when they begin coming to Middle Earth, they come almost as divine benefactors to the wild men of Middle Earth, right? So it's almost like they're bringing, they're bringing hope to these people who pretty much, to these other men who pretty much live in darkness, right? Mm-hmm. They're bringing the hope of Valinor to them, and really that's how it begins. But as time goes on,
kind of like missionaries.
Almost. That's how I kind of view them. You know, like that they're what a missionary really truly should be, is a person who doesn't go somewhere to exploit a place, but to bring them hope, bring them, bring them aid, bring them good news, right? Mm-hmm. And so, that's how I understand that the Numenorians were behaving at first, right? Was that they were kind of like because the elves, like, I think we've seen enough to know that, like, the elves weren't very populous, and they seemed maybe frightening to a lot of men, right, who didn't know them well, right? Mm-hmm. And then, but if you have other men coming, right, and, you know, that's a little more relatable.
Right, exactly. Yeah, relatable.
So I almost think that was kind of why they were brought to Numenor in the first place, was to build this happy place for men, and then become an exporter of happiness, right? In whatever form that sounds kind of generic.
It sounds a little cheesy too.
Sounds a little cheesy. Exporter of happiness. But, you know, whatever form that, like Princess Unikitty, all right. Like whatever form that might take, right? Whatever material or spiritual or any form like that it might take, their role there is to be exporters of good stuff, right?
Yeah.
Helpful stuff.
It does make
raise
sense.
raise the lives of men, you know, to the position they really should be as children of Iluvatar.
Mm-hmm.
So so that's how it starts. They come as almost divine benefactors to these wild men of Middle Earth. But then they begin to seek wealth rather than bliss, right? So they enter kind of this colonial phase, right, where they're maybe exploiting the people of Middle Earth more.
Yeah, Tolkien calls it the days of pride and glory.
Right.
Yeah, that's what they want.
Yeah, they want more pride and glory rather than to help. So, and it says they desire to escape death. Their desire to escape death produced a cult of the dead, and they lavished wealth and art on tombs and memorials.
I thought that was really weird.
Yeah.
I thought that was really weird, because if, like, what you want is to be immune to death, why are they spending all this time celebrating the dead? I didn't understand that at all. But that might just be a rabbit trail that we don't need to go down right now.
It's an interesting question. I'm not, I think it might be a little bit of a rabbit trail for us right now, but it certainly is an interesting question, and it's not a bad question because Tolkien brings it up here.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
But they do establish settlements on the west coasts of Middle Earth, and maybe those start to become kind of colonies, for them. So, and we read a little bit about those too in the some of the tales, the tale of the years, the tale of years from the end of Lord of the Rings. Anyway,
Yes.
and then finally, we get to the time of Tar-Kalion, right? Who is Ar-Pharazôn, right? And he is the one that builds the Great Armada. But first, he hears that Sauron, that old guy Sauron is calling himself the great Lord of Middle Earth, and he thinks, oh, this guy's a pretender, right?
Like, oh no,
I am the great Lord of Middle Earth, right? So this isn't like Tar-Kalion, Ar-Pharazôn is being, no one should call themselves that. He's like, wait a minute. If anybody is, I am.
me.
So I'm going to show you a thing or two. And it turns out that the armies of Numenor by this time are like super powerful, so much so that much of Sauron's army is kind of like scared of them.
Yeah,
right?
they
terrified
they
of
wouldn't
them.
even fight them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they defeat Sauron, capture him, and bring him back to Numenor. And
Which is stupid.
well,
It's so stupid. Why don't you just put chains around them and throw them in the sea? Don't bring them back to your house.
remember that Sauron is a master tempter, right?
Yes.
And he is a Maya, right? So
yeah, but he's an evil Maya.
well, but he can't be just killed, though. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And so, I don't it'll be interesting to see how they go through all the logic on this.
Yeah, well.
Maybe Sauron offered them something, in exchange for his life. But anyway, they bring him back to Numenor as a prisoner, and then within a few short years, he's really begun to corrupt things. So it says, a new religion and worship of the dark with its temple under Sauron arises. The faithful are persecuted and sacrificed. So like human sacrifice going on. This is how bad it gets. The Numenorians carry their evil also to Middle-earth, and there become cruel and wicked lords of necromancy, slaying and tormenting men, and the old legends are overlaid with dark tales of horror. This does not happen, however, in the northwest. For thither, because of the elves, only the faithful who remain elf friends will come. The chief haven of the good Numenorians is near the mouth of the great river Anduin. Thence, the still beneficent influence of Numenor spreads up the river and along the coast as far north as the realm of Gil-galad, as a common speech grows up. So,
And,
yeah.
just to back up a teeny bit, I found this line where it says the ban. What Sauron tells the Numenorians is that the ban is only a lying device of fear to restrain the kings of men from seizing everlasting life and rivaling the Valar. I mean, again, master tempter, right? That's basically what Satan did to Eve, right? It's like, oh, the only reason he doesn't want you to eat this is because you're going to become like him, right? And you're going to know everything. That's basically what Sauron's doing here. He's twisting the truth is what he's doing. Well, it's not even the truth here. He's just like, oh, it's just a means to restrain you because they're scared of you and they think that you're going to defeat them.
Yeah, and I have to be honest. I mean, I feel like
he's really appealing to their pride.
I feel like this could be. I really hope they do a good job of hitting this theme, because I think it's a really key one that has a really, not just dramatic tension, but a large philosophical tension associated with it that can make this show really special. If it's a central theme, because this is the question, right? When it comes to even like people dealing with religion in our own time, right? You have some people who probably take more of a view like you do, and like you just laid out. And I'll be honest, which I do as well. But you just laid out, which is like, it's good to trust, even though we don't know the whole, like what reward, like the fullness of the reward that awaits us, even though we can't see with our own eyes, we still live by faith. That's the whole question of living by faith, right? Is you're trusting in a greater thing that awaits you, right? Okay. But for some people, that's a really difficult proposition, right? And for whatever reason, so I'm not casting out judgment on either one of those points of view on right here, right now. I'm saying I think that's a really interesting question that this show, if it takes the time to explore that and weaves it into the overarching kind of philosophical tapestry of this thing, could make it a truly great and special endeavor.
Totally agree. Yeah, I totally agree.
And instead of just making it a show about, CGI and lots of blood battles and all this kind of stuff. Like it needs to explore the side. I mean, that all that stuff will be there, I know, but like there needs to be the deeper stuff in there. Like happens on our favorite shows like Breaking Bad and Mad Men. Yeah. They're full of like lots of kind of the more like salacious stuff that gets you into it, but and intrigue and all that. But there's also a deep like philosophical tension in both of those shows that makes them so good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Battlestar Galactica was the same way, even though it's been a long time since you've watched that. I know it was very much the same way.
Yeah. You need that. because otherwise it's just going to feel super empty.
Yeah, exactly. It's just going to feel like here's our weekly bloodbath,
right.
or something along those lines, or weekly Renaissance festival on TV.
Right.
Right. I like all that stuff, but it needs the philosophical undergirding to make it truly great.
People need stuff to talk about,
and worthy of Tolkien.
Oh,
worthy of what he did.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so of course we all know kind of the tragedy of this whole story. Sauron convinces Ar-Pharazôn to lead an armada and assault the Valar, and it's interesting. This is interesting to me. It says, faced by this rebellion of appalling folly and blasphemy, and also real peril, since the Numenorians directed by Sauron could have wrought ruin in Valinor itself, the Valar lay down their delegated power and appeal to God and receive the power and permission to deal with the situation. The old world is broken and changed. A chasm is opened in the sea, and Tar-Kalion and his armada is engulfed. Numenor itself, on the edge of the rift, topples and vanishes forever with all its glory in the abyss. Thereafter there is no visible dwelling of the divine or immortal on earth. Valinor, or Paradise, and even Eressëa are removed, remaining only in the memory of the earth. Men may now sail west if they will, as far as they may, and come no nearer to Valinor or the Blessed Realm, but return only into the east and so back again. For the world is round and finite, and a circle inescapable, save by death. Only the immortals, the lingering elves, may still, if they will, wearying of the circle of the world, take ship and find the straight way, and come to the ancient or true west, and be at peace. So,
I found it interesting that it says that the Numenorians, directed by Sauron, could have destroyed Valinor.
Yeah, or wrought ruin at least.
Could have ruined it. Ruin. Yeah, wrought ruin. Yeah. I didn't realize that they would have been that powerful. I mean, I understand that Sauron is a Maya, but I mean, we're talking about one Maya against a whole host of Maya plus the Iluvatar. So I was just surprised that they could have been that successful should the Valar have not gotten
But
permission.
Valinor is not a land of war either, right?
Well, that's true. They're not prepared for that kind of thing. Yeah. But it was interesting that they needed to get permission from Iluvatar to deal with the situation.
Yeah, and you can see in this little episode, it's like, well, now there you go, right? Like, that's why we didn't want to make men immortal.
Yeah.
But, it's interesting to think about, like, could, that's that little passage about the Valar laying down their delegated power and appealing directly to God. And, that it's God who kind of reshapes, refashions the world so that the Numenorians...
Right.
And really no man can even physically get there.
But it makes it sound like the Valar could have done it. Like, it says they laid down their delegated power.
Uh-huh.
Right?
Yeah, I don't know.
Doesn't that mean that they...
That's interesting. I'm not sure what that means exactly here. So it might mean that, but I'm not 100% sure if that's what it means.
They just weren't super confident, maybe.
I think they just made their appeal direct instead of being, because they were the rulers of the world, right? They were the powers of the world,
right? But not the creators.
And so I think basically they got wind of this and they went to Iluvatar and they're like, we may be in a little over our heads here.
Right. They knew that they needed the big guns on this one. Because, I mean, as the creator, right, he's the only one that could change the face of the earth, really. Right?
Yep.
So is it this battle that makes, or it's through this battle is what made the world round? Before that, it was
in Tolkien's
flat?
mythology, yeah.
I did not know that. Interesting.
Yep.
Huh. Cool beans.
All right, so it ends with pretty familiar story. We all so I won't spend too much time on it. Elendil and sons are the ones that escape. They're the faithful. Isildur is one of Elendil's sons, and at the last alliance, Gil-galad and Elendil both fall. Sauron is defeated. finally, well, not finally, but for the Second Age, and then Isildur falls when he fails to destroy the One Ring, and we're all pretty familiar with that part of the story, I'm guessing. So, so there you go. That is a summary of those three themes. Again, the three themes of the Second Age, according to Tolkien: the delaying elves that lingered in Middle-earth, Sauron's growth to a new Dark Lord, and the tragedy of Numenor.
Can we go back just super quick to Sauron's growth to a new Dark Lord?
Yeah.
So I know you referenced during when we were discussing that at the time, because was it the episode before last we talked about the religion of Numenor?
Yeah.
Right? How did that... I got a little confused. Did he, abolish that religion? Or did he corrupt it somehow? Or how... what was the role?
Well, one thing I noticed in particular is that he creates a temple. And if you recall, they didn't worship in a temple.
Right.
They worshipped on the Meneltarma.
No, they just went to the top of the mountain.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, he corrupt. I don't know that he, how does he corrupt it? Well, I don't know, but he at least leads them astray from it, right? Like that. Well, you should be worshiping the dark and not the god who lives above, right? And I think in Akalabath he even talks about him turning their worship to Morgoth, right? That he actually convinces them to worship Morgoth, which is an interesting note as well, because Morgoth is really nowhere to be seen in the Second Age.
No.
So
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Yeah, definitely. All right, y'all. That is the episode for this week.
Okay.
All right. Hey, don't forget to send correspondence to TolkienRoadPodcast@gmail.com. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter.
Give us 5-star reviews.
5-star reviews. Subscribe to us on your podcast app or on YouTube, because we're going to be there now. And we will look forward to talking at you next time. Thanks again to our patrons. Y'all rock. Al Taylor.
Andrew Herbert.
Andrew Thomas.
Azia Viner.
Austin Braswell.
Bethany Engler.
Brendan Corkery.
Brian Orr.
Caitlin Howell.
Kat Lane.
Chris Loftus.
Chuck Farnung.
Connor Fogarty.
Daniel Delaney.
Danny Daniel Peridot.
David Bates.
David Bigwood.
Emilio Perea.
Hunter Johns.
Ish of the Hammer.
James Applegate.
James Lindberg.
Joe Towns.
John Rice.
Margaret Lyon.
Matt Scarrett.
Robert Franks.
Robert Sleeth.
Sarah Murphy.
Shannon Stockbridge.
Teresa Colangelo.
Ty Miller.
Tyler Shelley.
Dr. William Hutton.
And Zeke Farmer.
You guys are the best. Thank you.
Thanks, y'all. You all rock. And
Indeed.
we will talk at you next time.
Indeed we will.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye, y'all.